In this video, I'm about to show you 10 Woolworths brand products you must avoid at all costs, and 5 better options you should actually be using. Starting with number 10. Number 10. Woolworths home brand white bread. Right, so let's kick things off with something almost every Australian household has sitting on the bench right now. Woolworths home brand white bread. Looks harmless, feels soft, costs next to nothing. And that right there should already be setting off alarm bells in your head, because nothing that cheap, that soft, and that shelf-stable got that way without a little help from the chemistry lab. Here's what gets me. This bread contains calcium propionate, that's preservative 282 if you're reading the label, which has been flagged in Australian research, including a study out of the University of Newcastle, for being linked to irritability, restlessness, and sleep disturbances in children. And I'm not talking about some fringe study buried on the internet. This was published, it was discussed, and Woolworths kept right on using it. On top of that, the bread uses bleached flour, which means the natural nutrients that were in the wheat have been stripped out and then some of them added back in artificially. You're essentially eating a reconstructed food product that's been engineered to last longer on a shelf than it has any right to. The texture is achieved through dough conditioners like ascorbic acid and emulsifiers that give it that pillowy feel, not because the bread is actually fresh or quality made, but because the additives are doing the heavy lifting. And for what? To save 80 cents? Mate, your gut deserves better than that. Number 9. Woolworths home brand. Tomato sauce. Now, tomato sauce is basically a religion in Australia. You put it on meat pies, sausage rolls, chippies, whatever's on the barbie. So when a big supermarket sells you a bottle of the stuff for $1.50, you'd at least hope they're giving you something close to real tomatoes. Spoiler, they're not giving you much. Woolworths home brand tomato sauce lists glucose syrup as one of its primary ingredients, sitting right up there in the top 3. That means before you even get to actual tomato content, you're already swimming in cheap sugar. Now, I've seen the nutrition panel on this thing. It clocks in at around 17 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters. That's nearly the same sugar load as a can of soft drink, except nobody's counting it because it's sauce, and we pour it on everything without thinking twice. There's also the use of food acid 260, which is acetic acid, essentially a vinegar derivative, used to sharpen the flavor and extend shelf life. The problem is, when you're using cheap tomato paste concentrate, which this product does, and then stacking glucose syrup on top of acetic acid to balance it out, you're not making tomato sauce. You're making a sugar and acid delivery vehicle with some tomato coloring. The real tomato taste just isn't there. And once you compare it side by side with even a mid-range sauce, it becomes obvious really fast. Number 8. Woolworths home brand vegetable oil. This one quietly sits in kitchens all across Australia and nobody gives it a second thought because it's just oil, right? Just cooking oil. How bad can it be? Here's the thing. Woolworths home brand vegetable oil is a canola and sunflower blend. Both of those oils are high in omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids, and the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 inches. The average Australian diet is already way out of balance. Researchers at Deakin University have noted this repeatedly when discussing chronic inflammation patterns in Australian adults. When you're frying with an oil that's already loaded with omega-6, you're adding fuel to that fire every single day without realizing it. But the issue that really bothers me is the refining process. Vegetable oils like this are produced using high-heat solvent extraction, typically with hexane, a petroleum-derived solvent, to strip the oil out of the seed. The refining process that follows uses bleaching and deodorizing, which means the oil that ends up in your bottle has been through multiple rounds of industrial processing before it touches your pan. And then you heat it again when you cook with it. At high temperatures, these refined oils can begin to oxidize and produce aldehydes compounds that have been studied for their potential cellular damage effects. This isn't conspiracy territory, it's food chemistry. Number 7. Woolworths home brand peanut butter. I know, peanut butter. Of all the things to warn people about. But just hear me out on this one because it matters. Woolworths home brand peanut butter, the regular, non-natural version, contains added sugar, added salt, and vegetable oil as part of its formulation. That vegetable oil addition is specifically there to stop the natural peanut oil from separating, which sounds convenient. But what it actually does is dilute the protein and fat profile of what should be a pretty clean food. Real peanut butter is peanuts, and maybe a pinch of salt. That's it. The sugar content in this product sits at around 8 to 9 grams per 100 grams, which doesn't sound catastrophic on its own, But when you're using it as a protein source, the way a lot of older Australians do, spreading it on toast for breakfast that's not a protein hit, that's a sugar hit with a peanut flavour. And there's something about the texture of this stuff that has always felt off to me. That ultra smooth, never separates consistency. That's not peanuts doing that. That's processing and additives doing that. A jar of actual ground peanuts will always separate. If yours never does, something's been done to it that it didn't need. Number 6. Woolworths home brand chicken nuggets. Let's talk about these chicken nuggets because they are absolutely everywhere, in freezers, in school lunches, at dinner time when nobody can be bothered cooking. And Woolworths sells a 2-kilogram bag of their home brand nuggets for a price that makes them almost irresistible. But have a look at what's actually in there. The chicken content in Woolworths home brand chicken nuggets is listed as reconstituted chicken. That means it's not a piece of breast or thigh that's been coated and frozen. It's mechanically separated chicken that's been processed into a paste, reshaped, and then coated. The actual meat percentage is lower than most people assume, sitting in the range of 40 to 50% chicken by weight once you factor in the batter, starch fillers, and flavor enhancers. Flavor enhancer 621, that's monosodium glutamate, is in there, along with 635, a nucleotide blend that amplifies the savory hit significantly. Now, MSG itself isn't the villain it was once made out to be, but when you're stacking it with 635 and feeding it to kids or older adults with sodium sensitivities, that combination drives up the sodium load in a way that isn't obvious until you sit down and do the maths. A serving of these can get you close to 600 milligrams of sodium, and nobody stops at a serving. Number 5. Woolworths home brand orange juice. Here's one that absolutely winds me up because orange juice gets this health halo that it has absolutely no right to anymore. And the Woolworths home brand version is one of the worst offenders for false impressions. This juice is made from concentrate. What that means is the oranges were juiced somewhere overseas. The water was removed to reduce shipping costs. The concentrated paste was transported to Australia, and then water was added back in. During that process, the natural volatile flavor compounds that make orange juice taste like actual oranges are largely lost. So what do manufacturers do? They add back flavor packs, proprietary blends of orange-derived compounds that have been engineered to recreate the taste of fresh juice. These flavor packs do not need to be listed separately on the label because they're technically derived from oranges. Meanwhile, a 250 milliliter glass of this juice delivers around 24 grams of sugar with virtually none of the fiber that would slow down how quickly that sugar hits your blood. You'd get more nutritional value out of eating 2 actual oranges, which would also give you the fiber, the slower sugar release, and the full spectrum of micronutrients that survive the juicing and concentration process. The concentrate version gives you the sugar spike without the benefits. Number 4. Woolworths home brand muesli bars. These get marketed to Australian families as a lunchbox staple, a healthy snack for kids, something wholesome to throw in the bag on the way to school or sport. And that marketing is doing an enormous amount of heavy lifting, because the reality of these bars is something else entirely. Woolworths home brand muesli bars list glucose, syrup and sugar within the first 4 ingredients. Combined, the sugar content across most variants sits around 28 to 32 grams per 100 grams. To put that in perspective, that's in the same ballpark as some chocolate biscuits. Except chocolate biscuits don't get to call themselves a health snack. The oat content is there, sure, but it's sandwiched between syrup binders, flavor compounds, and cheap palm oil derivatives that hold the bar together and give it that sweet, sticky coating. And the portion sizing is deliberately set at around 31 grams per bar, which sounds small until you realize the sugar per serve is already sitting at 9 to 10 grams before your kid has even had lunch. That's not a snack. That's a sugar delivery system shaped like a health product. Number 3. Woolworths home brand. Yogurt. Yogurt is one of those foods that genuinely can be good for you. Real yogurt with live cultures, minimal sugar, proper fermentation. There's real research behind its benefits for gut health, including studies published in the Medical Journal of Australia looking at probiotic consumption in older adults. So it genuinely matters what version you're buying. Woolworths, home brand, strawberry yogurt, and this goes for most of the flavoured varieties in their line, contains modified starch as a thickener, which replaces the natural thickening that comes from proper fermentation time. That tells you immediately that this product has been rushed through production. Proper yogurt doesn't need starch. It gets thick because the bacteria have done their job over time. When you see starch on the label, you're looking at a shortcut. The live culture count in home brand flavored yogurts is also substantially lower than in premium alternatives. The cultures are still listed, but the colony-forming units, the actual measure of how many live bacteria you're getting, are not disclosed, which is itself a red flag. Meanwhile, the sugar content sits at around 13 to 15 grams per 100 grams, once the fruit preparation and added sugar are factored in. You're not eating a probiotic food at that point. You're eating a sweetened, starch-thickened dessert with some yogurt in it. Number 2. Woolworths home brand biscuits, home brand cream biscuits. These cream biscuits have been sitting in Australian pantries for decades. They're cheap, they're familiar, and they get dunked in cups of tea from Cairns to Perth. But let's be honest about what they actually are. The fat source in Woolworths home brand cream biscuits is listed as vegetable fat, which is the kind of deliberately vague label that should immediately make you curious. In biscuit manufacturing in Australia, vegetable fat frequently means palm oil or a palm oil blend, chosen because it's cheap and solid at room temperature, which gives the cream filling its texture without using dairy butter. Now, palm oil isn't inherently toxic, but it is high in saturated fat. We're talking around 50% saturated fat content, and when it's the primary fat in a product someone is eating regularly with every cup of tea, that saturated fat load adds up quietly across the day. The cream filling itself contains artificial flavoring compounds to simulate a vanilla or cream taste that the actual ingredients don't naturally produce. And the biscuit portion uses raising agents, including sodium bicarbonate and ammonium bicarbonate, the latter of which can leave a slightly bitter, chemical taste in products that haven't been baked optimally, which explains the occasional odd aftertaste people report with these. It's not your imagination. Number 1. Woolworths home brand frozen fish fillets. And here we are at number 1. And I want to be straight with you about why this one takes the top spot. Because this isn't just about quality. This is about trust. And about what a supermarket is telling you versus what they're actually selling you. Woolworths home brand frozen fish fillets are sourced from overseas fisheries, primarily from Southeast Asia, and processed offshore before being frozen and shipped to Australia. The species used is often listed generically as basa or pangasius, which is a farmed Vietnamese catfish raised in the Mekong Delta. Now, basa isn't poisonous, but the farming conditions in mass-production Mekong aquaculture operations have been the subject of repeated scrutiny. Australian consumer advocacy groups, including Choice, have reported on imported budget seafood carrying residues of antibiotics and chemicals used in intensive aquaculture. And basa has appeared in multiple import alerts from food safety agencies in other markets. The sodium triple-I phosphate treatment on these fillets, used to retain moisture and boost weight, means you're paying water weight when you buy by the kilogram. Thaw them out and they shrink noticeably, releasing that absorbed water into your pan and ruining any chance of getting a proper sear or crust. The texture turns mushy rather than firm, and the flavor is bland to the point of tasting like nothing, because a fish that's been chemically soaked, frozen, shipped across the ocean, and thawed in a retail display case has had most of its flavor integrity stripped away long before it reaches your kitchen. For older Australians on a budget trying to get good protein and omega-3s from their diet, this product is one of the worst value propositions on the entire shelf, and it happens to sit right next to a flag that says Australian. Alright, that's the 10 Woolworths products I'd leave on the shelf without thinking twice. Now let's talk about what's actually worth your money. Number 5. Helga's Traditional White Bread. Now, if you're going to buy bread at Woolworths, at least reach for Helga's Traditional White over the home brand. Helga's uses a longer fermentation process than standard commercial bread, which means lower preservative reliance and a more developed flavor. There's no calcium propionate in Helga's traditional range. The shelf life is managed through better baking and ingredient quality rather than chemical preservation. The texture is denser and more honest. The ingredient list is shorter, and you can actually taste that it's been made with more care. It costs more. But when you're talking about something you eat every single day, the extra $1 or $2 is absolutely worth it. Number 4. Beerenberg Tomato Sauce. Beerenberg is a South Australian family brand that's been making condiments in the Barossa Valley since 1839, and their tomato sauce is the real deal. The tomato content is higher, the sugar is lower, and there's no glucose syrup anywhere inside. It's made with Australian-grown tomatoes, and the flavour actually tastes like something tangy, slightly sweet, and rich in a way that home-brand sauce just never achieves. It's about $4 a bottle versus $1.50 for Woolworths home brand. And once you've used Beerenberg on a pie, going back is genuinely hard. Number 3. Cobram Estate Extra Virgin Olive Oil. For anyone still cooking with that home brand vegetable oil blend, Cobram Estate is the upgrade that changes everything. Cobram is Australian grown and Australian pressed, operating out of the Riverina region, and they cold press their olives within hours of picking to preserve the polyphenol content. Those are the anti-inflammatory compounds that make extra virgin olive oil genuinely good for you. Research from the University of Melbourne has specifically cited Australian extra virgin olive oil as having measurably higher polyphenol levels than many imported alternatives due to freshness and handling. It's more expensive, yes, but it's a fat you can cook with, drizzle with, and feel genuinely good about putting in your body. Number 2. Jalna Natural Greek Yogurt. Jalna has been making yogurt in Australia since 1977, and their natural Greek yogurt is about as clean as it gets from a commercial producer. No starch, no added sugar. No artificial thickeners, just milk and live cultures set slowly in the pot the old-fashioned way, which is why it's firm and rich without any additives to prop it up. The live culture count is genuine, and the fermentation time is real. For gut health, for protein, for everything that yogurt is supposed to be good for, Jalna's natural range is one of the most consistently honest products on the Woolworths shelf. If you're going flavoured, add your own fruit at home. You'll get better flavour and control exactly how much sugar goes in. Number 1. Tassel Tasmanian Atlantic Salmon. And for the fish, please reach past the home brand Bussa and pick up Tassel. Tassel is a Tasmanian company farming Atlantic salmon in the clean, cold waters of southern Tasmania. It's Australian produced, it's regulated under Australian food safety standards, and the quality difference is immediate the moment you put it in a pan. No sodium tripoli phosphate soaking, no shrinkage, no muddiness. It sears properly, it holds together, and it actually tastes like fish. The omega-3 content in tassel salmon, around 2.5 grams per 100 gram serve, is legitimate and meaningful for cardiovascular health, which matters a lot for older Australians. It costs more than frozen basa. Everything worth having does, but this one is genuinely worth the difference.